Hello, everyone. Welcome to Indies Nuts. I, again, am Jonathan, and this, of course, is my good buddy, Victor Vistareeser, my co-host, and I want to say friend? Question mark?
Yeah, you could say that, I guess.
But thank you guys for the great reception of the first episode. We got a lot of positive feedback from that one. Looking forward to moving on with the show and seeing where it goes from here and what it becomes. So thank you guys. If you haven't watched our first video, please go back and check out Super Bunny Man. And if you played it, let us know. I'd be interested if anyone ended up picking up the game after watching the video. So we'll see.
Yeah, 100%. And I am, of course, Victor, aka Vister, aka Chrono on my socials for gaming stuff. I'm so excited for round 2. We're coming together live, bringing it to you with this recorded show. Sorry that my face is super whitewashed. I look like I should be sitting in some, late 80s, like a Top Gun extra or something right now. But the sun...
If you're just listening to this, he's got the aviators and everything on. Not a joke. He's literally doing it.
And it looks like she'll be like, yep, copy, you're good to set them down on runway 76-3. Okay. Yep. Echo, Foxtrot, Niner. Yes.
Did I hear a Niner in there?
I'm calling from a walkie-talkie.
Mine is washed out just because I'm too close to the lamp and the lamp is behind a table, so I can't move it. So it is what it is. Professional quality here on Indies Nuts.
What we do.
At any rate, episode 2, we are looking at actually a relatively new game here today called Rogue Heroes. Now, unlike Super Bunny Man, Victor and I have not played this one yet. We both purchased it today. We're going to go into it after this part of the show, so we'll put some of the highlights and clips on there for you guys. And then we'll jump into the discussion like we did last time about what our impressions are of the game. But before that, we'll give you our takes on what we think this game might be like, what we know about it so far, and things like that. So, like I said, today we are going to be looking at Rogue Heroes. This is a game developed by Heliocentric Studios, published by Team 17. Victor, you were mentioning earlier that Team 17 has put out some other stuff. Do you happen to remember off the top of your head what any of the other games?
Recently, their biggest success would be Overcooked, of course.
Oh, and yeah, great game.
Yeah, exactly, awesome. That game is it's fantastic. And then when I think Team 17, I think of Worms as the franchise that I played a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In my young,
did they make all of the Worms games? Or
Yep.
Oh, nice. Yep. Worms Armageddon is legit. It's on the shelf. You can't see it because it's behind the Sega Saturn boxes right there, but
so
right
fun.
Behind that one, you'll see.
It was a game full of memes Armageddon. Before memes existed. And, it's good.
Slightly problematic, semi-racist voices in it.
Yeah, that sounds right. You would just say they were based off of stereotypes. So
yeah,
product of its time. Take that as you will. Hopefully not. It's not too rough now. I don't know. Do we need to cancel Worms?
Yeah,
that's another podcast. We'll figure that out. Yeah, put that down in the comments.
the Worms cancel culture podcast.
Yeah,
100 episodes, deep dive.
Please don't put us in the twit longer, and we're gonna go ahead. So about this game really quickly, the studio Heliocentric Studios, they only put out 2 games previously, and this one got picked up by Team 17 Digital, and it's actually available now on the Switch, which is cool. And Switch being a newer platform for indie games, which is one of the best things about this generation of Nintendo consoles compared to the other consoles as well. I mean, just Nintendo didn't really have a lot of, easy access for indie devs, until more recently. So that's nice.
Yeah,
it is a single player game. However, it has online co-op, which we're going to use. It also has split screen and shared co-op, which is pretty great.
Yeah, it's not often you get both.
Yeah. It isn't. It really isn't. And that's why Steam kind of came up with their remote play system, and people have been using programs like Parsec for years already to simulate that experience. I wanted to say I did look at some reviews before we jumped into this, just a little bit to see what I get into, just a front page. One of the things it mentions, and one of the issues Jonna and I might be complaining about, is that online multiplayer has been a problem.
I did not know that. Well,
Yeah,
we'll
so
find out.
just in case we run into a buggy mess, that could, that could be possible. It only was officially released the 24th of February, 2021. So that
Brand
is
new, brand
extremely new.
spanking new.
What kind
Uh,
of game is it supposed to be, Jonna?
well, I want to say, as far as the online multiplayer goes, we're playing it on PC, but fortunately, if you play it on Switch, Switch is known for its rock solid, excellent online multiplayer. So maybe
It won't
that
be an
might be
issue.
might be the preferred way to play it.
I'm
Just
thinking split screen co-op. If this is cool enough, if this is great, I'm legit thinking, why not buy it? Play with the wife, it might be a good game that we can play together. We'll see how it
Yeah,
goes.
I'm always looking for good indie games on the Switch. I love the Switch, and pre-pandemic, just loading it up with multiplayer games because there when the Switch first came out, there were the commercials of people like, "We're playing on the rooftop, we're playing at the basketball court," and I was like, "What kind of idiot is going to do that?" Well, apparently, I'm that kind of idiot because I've done almost every scenario that they've shown in those commercials. I've done. So you're welcome, Nintendo, for the advertising on that one. Yeah, so this game is supposed to be a mix of like a roguelike uh, puzzle adventure game, kind of in the from the videos that I saw of it, it looked like it was kind of in the vein of like a Legend of Zelda esque kind of adventure. It looked pretty cool. I believe the first time I saw this was on maybe on one of the indie directs. I could be wrong about that, but I remember seeing a video of this in like a compilation of indie games before it came out, and I took note of it because usually my little brother and I play a lot of these kind of online multiplayer games together, and it looked cool. This was before Victor and I had completely decided on doing the show. And so I figured, well, might as well try it out, see if it's any good, let you guys know if it's any good, and whether you should spend your money on it or not. Um, so we'll see. We'll jump into it here in a
Yep.
bit. Anything else you want to say before we dive into the gameplay?
No, I'm very excited to try it out. So let's do it.
Yep, sounds good. We'll see you guys on the other side. Well, guys, here we are on the other side of gameplay. We finished out three of the dungeons, three of the four, I think.
Yeah.
There are four in the game,
Exactly.
and we have our results of the game. So overall, I think we can both say this game is pretty good, pretty positive. I enjoyed it a lot. I think at this point we've put in 9 hours or something like that
Yeah.
of playing this game. There's a lot. There's a lot of gameplay. So we went through a bunch of it. We're gonna break this down into the pros and cons, same as we did last time, and let you guys know what we thought of the game overall. Like I said, overwhelmingly positive. We do have a few gripes with it, and we'll go through each of those in a second here. But let's start with the pros, like we did last time, and jump through them. So I think the main thing that I really enjoyed about this game is that, as you can see through the gameplay right now, that's on the screen, it plays a lot like The Legend of Zelda in a lot of the best ways possible. You have really good dungeon design. You have items that you're picking up that are changing things. You have an overworld map that you're solving puzzles on to unlock dungeons. All of that is really cool. And there's a bit of changes to the formula. So number one, which I'm sorry, Victor, I didn't include this on our list, but is that it is a roguelite. So when you are playing through the dungeons, your whole goal is to get through as far as you can. And if you die, you end that run, you spend your points, you upgrade, and you tackle it again. But yeah, Victor, why don't you go into some of the points here that
Sure,
are
of course.
deviations from the Zelda formula?
One of the best things is, even though it's a roguelike game and you're playing it with your friends, there's no competition over resources as far as the jewels and other items you need to get to progress through the dungeon. Even healing items are shared between all the players in the run. So it's really nice and it promotes you working together, and there's not a lot of that competitive edge. So if you wanted to play a game that's more hardcore, there are plenty of those. But this game is much more of a, hey, co-op, let's do this. The challenge is just getting through successfully as a team, which is great. They're
For sure.
yeah, right. So they're also
There's actually a cool point about that with the sharing of items is that in this game, when you want to craft the items like the bombs or bow and arrow or stuff like that, there is a way for everyone to have those abilities, even if you don't unlock them. Because in dungeons, you can pick up glass versions
right.
of those items that you can only use for that one run, which kind of levels the playing field if, say, I got enough of the crafting items and Victor didn't, for example.
Right. So if a player is coming in from an account that, or perhaps they have played a little more solo, and their friend hasn't quite gotten the to that point, they can still find the items in the dungeon. Very cool. I don't know which game set that precedent, but I have seen it before. So it's a cool system, having like the glass system there. The other thing that we really enjoyed, which is great, and I especially love, is the opportunity for each character to play different classes and to specialize in those classes. So you could have different combat styles, and you can level up depending specifically how you as a player want to do it. There are enough areas to unlock. It takes maybe an hour to open up all of the different things, like the buildings that allow you to level up essentially different aspects of your character. And that's the way they divide the skill tree basically into different buildings you can go to. And then after that, it's up to you. For example, after one full run through the first dungeon, I decided I'm just going to go, I unlocked the mage class, I'm going to go full wizard, full blasted, full fireball. And I spent all of my points leveling up just fireball attacks.
Just for no health,
No,
stamina,
nothing.
Nothing else. Yeah.
Perfect glass cannon. I got hit twice and I was dead. And that's the whole time we played together. It's like
there was a lot of me rezzing Victor
Yes.
in this game.
yeah, exactly. And then and John, you went more tank style with more damage on top of that, which was great and very cool. And when our friend Dan joined us later, he played a different way, which was really fun.
Yeah. We basically had like 3 different setups. Like mine was more stamina based. I maxed out my stamina tree really quickly, which if you guys know how I play games, that's always my build. I'm always a dex or stamina build. Our buddy Dan, he did more HP and attack, and then Victor, as he mentioned, just straight magic. And it worked out really well. It made each of our characters feel a bit different. We each had our strengths and weaknesses. During the regular parts of the dungeon, I was a little bit sturdier, so I was able to survive a bit better through some of the traps and things like that we encountered. But when we got to boss fights, Victor just melted them.
Yeah, I'm just
all right, it was insane.
Don't die by the trap, and then it's just bam, bam, bam. It just instant death. It took, I think, the longest fight after I started doing that was like 30 seconds, maybe.
For sure.
Which was awesome. It was awesome. It
got kind of ridiculous. Yeah.
It felt really good.
I will say
really
that
good.
One of the things that we will point out is that in the beginning of this game, because it is a roguelike, you're going to feel very underpowered the first time you go through the dungeon, and you're going to get destroyed. And that's going to feel pretty bad.
Yeah.
But just hang on, because after you go through that first dungeon once or twice, you'll get plenty of gems and plenty of opportunity to start dipping into some of these different trees and extending your attack range or building on your magic, building items and stuff like that. And the game starts to feel pretty good pretty quickly. So if you jump in and the first half hour you're thinking, this isn't really for me, just push through that.
Do it.
By the end of the first hour, you're going to be enjoying yourself.
And that's not true of so many games, Like, I really didn't like this game at first. I did not. But...
Yeah, I don't know that we'll include the gameplay and footage for that because it's just going to take too long.
Yeah.
But going into the game, Victor was pretty negative about it. And we'll talk about some of those legitimate concerns when we get to the con section. But after about, like I said, the first hour or so, we were in it, and it was like every day we were like, "Hey, you want to play Rogue Heroes? Hey, you want to play Rogue Heroes? Like, let's jump on it." As Victor mentioned as well, we had our buddy Dan jump in the game, which was cool because the game lets people jump in and out as you will. Basically, you make your character, you assign a picture and a color to it, and that will keep track of all of your stats. And it doesn't matter if you're there all the time or not. So if I wanted to, I didn't do this, but I could have grinded on my own and waited for Victor and Dan to jump in later. If someone else wanted to jump in on player 4, we could have let them do that, and it would have been great. The other thing about this game does have online multiplayer, which is awesome because a lot of indie games do not. They usually just have local multiplayer, split screen kind of deal.
Yeah.
This one has both. And the thing that's nice is because we played it on Steam, you could use Steam Link and just have just one copy of the game.
Which is
for
what we
multiple
did,
people
which
to
is,
play.
yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah.
Very smooth.
And overwhelmingly, it worked really well. There was a slight issue with sound, which we'll talk about a little bit in the con section, but I would say out of 10 stars, an 8 or 9 on the quality of the streaming for that.
Oh yeah, of course, definitely. And I'm playing across the ocean, and it still worked very well. So
Yeah,
like, I gotta say,
absolutely.
that's a solid for me. You know. So let's talk about
Absolutely.
the let's go ahead and talk about dungeon design next. Some of the things we did, like the map tile colors. So in the dungeons themselves, it looked really nice, and
Yeah.
I mean, it was a clean look. It was pixelated, but the pixel art, I think, led to the feeling of sort of a, like, you know, like a new age retro, like the same thing that a lot of indie games do, but did it well.
For sure.
Which did it well.
Definitely has that Link to the Past style flavor to it. Not quite as beautiful as that game is,
Right.
but definitely smacked of that influence.
Right. And one thing we really liked that made it was a fun concept were these chairs that you use to resurrect each other. They had them, it was a randomly seated dungeon each time you enter. And so the chairs are, you never know where they're going to be. When your friend dies, as I did many times, then Jonathan would pick up my skull, have to carry it back to where you find one of those chairs, put it in the chair, and it's a one and done. I get rezzed with half my health, and the chair breaks, and you got to conserve resources, kind of remember where those are, and it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun
you have to make a mental note, like, oh, this is where that chair is at. It's also a nice little risk reward thing because when, like Victor mentioned, when you die, your skull drops, and you cannot be resurrected unless your skull is taken to that chair. So it's a nice risk reward. Like, do I try to clear out the room and then go res my party member, or do I just run and grab the skull and book it out of the room as fast as I can and just try to get my teammate back? So it was a cool little mechanic that I think added a lot and made the game a bit more interesting. The other thing that was kind of cool about that is if you are dead, you're not completely out of the game.
Right.
You can kind of float around as a ghost, which was pretty interesting. And while you're in this ghost form, you can still interact with things on the map. So, for example, you can jump into some of the clay pots or jars and try to prevent snakes or enemies from jumping out of them. You could trigger traps so that when your ally stepped on it, instead of getting hurt, it would drop money. You could just grief the bad guys, I guess.
Yeah,
if
which
you
was
wanted to
nice,
do that.
you know, and you didn't have to
Yeah,
either.
it was cool.
You didn't have to. If you need to take a break, you're dead, whatever, you float around as a ghost, you follow your friend. Good stuff.
Absolutely.
Some really fun puzzles. We were just saying we have to include talking about, for example, the game did a pretty good job with a random generated puzzle system. Some of them were confusing and a little hard to figure out, but only based on how they were placed. And nothing really felt too boring, which was nice, even though they're simple.
Yeah.
So I think that's
there
great.
were a couple of those Zelda like pushing block puzzles that we messed up a little bit on, but that was mostly just because it was hard to keep track of who had already pushed which block in which direction.
And then you just leave the chamber and come back though,
good.
and it would reset. So it's no big deal.
Most of them were good. The one that we definitely wanted to mention is there's one puzzle, and I'll try to find the footage and put it there for you guys. Is there is a puzzle where you are in a room that has these zones that are these kind of sparkling tiles on the ground, and you have a crystal ball that you need to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
But you're not able to carry the crystal ball through those sparkle zones. It'll destroy the ball. So what you have to do is have people run to different parts of the room and throw the crystal ball to each other, and don't miss it because it'll break if it hits the ground. And you have to try to like find a path through this room. And it was just like a really creative puzzle. I'd never seen that one in a Zelda game, obviously, because you're playing multiplayer in this one, which is not the case in most Zelda games. And it was just interesting. We also had the experience where even though we played through the same dungeon multiple times, you would see different rooms or different enemies pop up from time to time. I think the first dungeon we played through maybe 4 or 5 times at
Yeah,
least. And
at
even on
least.
our last run, there were still rooms that we were like, oh, we've never seen this one,
Yeah,
because the layout is randomized. Like Victor touched on briefly here, one thing that is cool is that the map colors will be different. So the map looks very similar to one in Legend of Zelda, where it's just kind of the blocks. But the thing that they do really cool is it will show you which areas you haven't been in. If you have the map, those will be grayed out. It will have rooms that you've completely completed will be in green, and rooms that you may have missed something will be in blue, which is nice because Victor and I are both the kind of person that if there's something that still needs to be done in the dungeon, we're not going to finish it. We're going to
gotta
go
do it.
back and make sure that room is
Every
cleared out.
chest unlocked, every stone unturned. So it's a nice visual indicator that made it fast. It streamlined the process, which was nice.
Absolutely. Speaking of streamlining, one of the things that was really cool too is that each dungeon, as far as we've seen so far, was 3 floors. And what they did is that when you would find the second floor, there was a kind of mechanic where you could pay money, pay some of your treasure to permanently unlock a staircase. And then the next time you go in the dungeon, if you want to bypass the first floor, you could absolutely do that, which made it really quick. It was good for us because of the time difference that we're playing at. Sometimes, one of us has to go to sleep or to work or something like that. And it was like, well, we have just enough time. Let's just pop up to the third floor, clear out the dungeon, and get a little bit of money and get out. And so that was really cool. I really appreciated that. I think overall the dungeons were the strongest part of this game. They're very fun to play through, very fun to go back to because they were randomly generated. You're not playing through the same thing as well.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. On last note, we want to talk about other than the fact the camera zooms out and the resolution of each floor is fully viewable regardless of how many players are there, and more often than not to the detriment of anybody, which is a nice feature instead of keeping it too small per
Absolutely.
screen. There also are wonderful animal names, and that's our
Yes.
last pro on the list.
Yeah, we won't spoil all of them for you, but I do want to throw out a shout out to my favorite one, which was Waffles.
Shout out
the
to
dog,
Waffles, dude.
He's the real hero in the game.
I'm drinking some stream lime flavored sparkling water right now.
Oh, that makes me sad. Well, let's jump into the cons.
Let's do it.
There's honestly not that many.
Nope.
I think overall the game was very positive. Few small things. Number one, we mentioned about the Steam Link. This wasn't an issue for me because I was the one streaming it, but when Victor and Dan jumped into the game, there were some issues with the sound where like I couldn't hear sound effects, but they could, or the music was super loud for them, even though I had it at the absolute lowest setting on my computer. Stuff like that made it a little bit complicated. Again, that's not really the game's fault. That's just something you're going to deal with when you're using programs like Steam Link or I say Steam Link, it's Steam Remote Play. I apologize. Someone's probably in the comments like, that's not what it's called.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah.
But Steam Remote Play, I should say, or Parsec. We didn't use Parsec on this one, so maybe that's not an issue if you play it that way. But just a heads up, lower your volume before you jump into the game.
Yeah.
Before you blow your eardrum.
And then there's a couple more points before we end up finishing this out. Art direction, generally speaking, on the overworld was a very bland sometimes. The colors were sort of extremely pastel, and like Jonna and I had said a few times, it looks like a texture pack that someone bought on Humble Bundle or something. Which
it might be.
Yeah,
it
could be
an indie game. It's possible that they just
and
did that
again,
at the same time.
Not enough to ruin the experience, but definitely first impression jumping into the game, it's something that jumps out at you and could be kind of a turn off.
Oh yeah. It's not game breaking by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something that like when we started kind of soured Victor's opinion. It was like, oh, this game does not look particularly good.
Especially in contrast to the dungeons. The dungeons look great.
For sure. The gameplay is what shines, the art direction not so much.
The introduction, way too long. I was bored. The exposition, I mean, clearly someone put their heart, I don't know who. Maybe these guys, maybe they hired somebody. Their heart and soul into the story behind this game, but if you were going to talk about the similar genre defining, implementation, let's look at Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, where it opens up. There is a small loading screen with, I think, 4 or 5, you know, just lines of text boxes with probably 20 words each. That is it. Or if you actually start the game, you don't even see that. You get right into the action, and that ruins nothing. And the story is left to the mind of the people in the game. I think this game would benefit from just nixing all of it, because it never came up. We played it for hours, and nothing ever came up.
That was one of the things that they probably could have handled better. I think that, to me, the story didn't bother me. I'm fine with the story being there. But like you mentioned, it doesn't come up at all, really, while you're playing the game. I think it would have been better served if maybe after you finished each dungeon for the first time, if they would have given you like little bits and pieces of the story then, so it feels more like a reward instead of something you're just slogging through to get into.
Or a skippable cutscene, or some like a log in a library that you could go and read later and see things. Anything to not force
items
it.
You would find that would unlock parts of the story. There are a lot of better ways to handle it than what they did.
Yes. So. And then I mean, there was one big typo that I wanted to mention, but we don't have a.
It really irritated.
We don't want to waste too much time. But essentially, the text was not really well done either.
Yeah, the font for it, the way that it was aligned, and then the one typo that we found, which was it said planting instead of planting, and we were just like, oh, come on, man, this is a finished game. No one caught that?
Exactly. And the reason we bring this up, why couldn't they catch this, is because one of the things that popped up a lot were actual notifications about achievements that you have made throughout the game. And this was probably, this was my biggest complaint, is that there were so many achievements that happened. You get an achievement. If you're watching gameplay right now, you look in the bottom right corner of the screen, you will see it.
You'll see it come up a lot.
You've walked so many in-game miles. You've grabbed so many acorns. You've grabbed so many things. You've
literally
so many
everything
fireballs.
you do was an achievement.
You've swung your sword so many times. It doesn't matter what it did. It just like so much gratification. I was just over it, and
it didn't feel like an achievement.
It
felt like okay, I'm just doing stuff to check boxes.
It popped up for each player that was in the game at the time.
Individually.
Boom, boom, boom. That covered up a portion of the map that made that difficult to play if it's a hard chamber, for example, which happened a couple times. And not only that, it doesn't lend anything. You don't get any bonuses. No. There's nothing that happens.
Not as far as I know.
That we could see after playing the game. Potentially 60 to 70% of the game. Nothing could happen.
We joked around about this a little bit, where it'd be like, Victor has walked 7 miles or some stuff. I'm like, oh, I can tell my wife, finally, she can respect me.
Yeah, right? Oh,
I've walked the 7 miles.
Yes.
So
something to write home about. I'm updating my Twitter right now, dude. It's just...
I feel like if achievements aren't going to be something that either reward you with something for doing them or are actually challenging to get, just don't include them, or at least give me the option to toggle them off. A toggle would have been fine. I'm fine with them being in the game if I could.
Totally. And then finally, go ahead, Jonna, because I think you say this right.
The last thing for this game was more an issue for me, I think, than some of the other for Dan and Victor when we were playing it. But there are a lot of items similar to Legend of Zelda. Unfortunately, because it's a multiplayer game, it's very annoying to go into your menu to go scrolling between them and choosing which one you want to use. Fortunately, they made it where the shoulder buttons, or I think on the keyboard it was Q and E, would swap through them and toggle through them. The problem is there are like 20 items in this game. So it got to the point where I just had to memorize, like, okay, if I do right 5 times, that will put me on my hook shot, and then 3 times off of that is my potion, and then like 6 times with L will put me on this one.
Yeah.
And it was just cumbersome. I really wish that they would have put some kind of hotkey system or something like that. Like in the game, as far as I know, on the controller, you're not using the D-pad. It would have been great to be able to put maybe your top 4 items on those directions, or maybe a button that when you held it, there's a button you could hold to do like emotes for when you're playing online with people you didn't know. It would have been nice if you could have something similar to that that would bring up an item wheel
Yeah,
where you could
item
just
wheel.
flick
Exactly.
over to it really
Tried and
quick.
true system.
Um,
Even Secret of Mana did something like that. So many.
Secret of Manas was kind of
I,
bad because it paused the
yeah,
game,
you're right. You're
but
right. You're right.
the
Yeah.
idea is still sound.
What about more
that
recently?
keeps
Monster
people
Hunter
up.
has a great item
Yeah,
wheel. You know,
absolutely.
it could easily be
And,
done.
and
Easily be done.
yeah, and that was a gripe that I had. Not game breaking. Game is still super fun, but a few small things. So, like I said, overall, I think that we would both say it is an excellent game. I would highly recommend it. I bought it on PC, like I said, for Steam. But if this game ever goes on sale on the Switch, I will pick up another copy of it because I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great game to pop into with buddies. We've put in a good amount of time. I've overwhelmingly enjoyed it, despite some of the minor flaws. And I would say, yeah, pretty much a home run on this one.
Yeah, I agree. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I don't know if I would go that far, but I would say it's definitely worth it to get if you have someone to play with. We had so many fun conversations while we're playing the game, and that's what you're looking for when, especially at this price range. It's on the Switch, it's on, on PC. That's fantastic. You can play online with your friends. And even at home, you don't need to play online. You play, if you got it on Switch, you play it on your TV together with, your wife, your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, friends, family, children. Even children could play this. There's so little negative outcomes for not playing super well as long as you enjoy the experience, and the experience is enough to play this game. So I'd say definitely worth buying. Go for it, everybody.
For sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that's
guys,
it.
That's going to be it. Yeah.
We did it. We
So,
did it again.
Thank you guys very much.
We did it again.
We're going to be checking out a couple other games. We got a couple on our docket here that we might be looking into. One that's got some Donkey Kong Country vibes to it, and another one that I heard about that has an interesting mechanic that I've never seen before. So we'll have to decide which one we're going to do. We haven't looked at how much they cost or what the options are for recording it or streaming it or stuff like that. But we'll get another video out to you guys soon, hopefully a lot sooner than this one. This one took a bit of time. We apologize about that. But thank you for watching.
That's right.
Please do all the normal.
YouTube make sure.
Stuff,
take a look.
Subscribe.
If you think this is something you want to hear about, or you want to hear my lovely voice again in the future, please hit subscribe. It's right down there. Or subscribe if you want, which is the correct way to say it. Hit like, do us a favor, share this with your friends, and we will see you next time with some more fun games.
See you next time, guys.